Perfect. Welcome, everybody. My name is Carla. I am part of CFNE's learning team. I'll be leading this workshop today. I decided to help you better manage your money. And a little bit of background, I've worked as a financial facilitator in the past, helping families understand the U.S. system. I mainly have focused on a lot of immigrant families or first generation, but it is good for everybody because we're not taught about this in school, so it works. And as we understand how our system works, we can make the mental changes about finances so that we can navigate better in a more viable and functional way. So let's continue. And are you able to see the change in the? Okay. So the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast is a nonprofit community development financial institution, or a CDFI, that was established in 1975. We work on economic, social, and racial justice by advancing community-based, cooperative, or democratically owned or managed enterprises. We focus more on serving low-income communities, and we do this by providing co-op-friendly financial products and services, providing co-op business coaching, connections, and contact, just as this one that we're having today, and offering investment opportunities that promotes socially conscious enterprises. Okay, so just want to take a minute or two, and you guys can write down, why did you choose to spend this hour and a half with us today? It's important that we think about, people call it that why power. Why is the reason that you chose for yourselves that you wanted to join in? So I'm going to give a minute or two just to think this quickly. And you're welcome to share in the chat box if you feel comfortable doing so. If not, this is mainly for you to think about what is it that you want to do. Okay, if everybody can give me a thumbs up if you're already ready so that we can move forward. Coolio. Great. All right. So why do we talk about personal finances in a cooperative setting? And it's basically that they're very intertwined. Personal finances and finances of a co-op are symbiotic. How we view money in our homes is directly impactful on how we view money in the cooperative. Not all of us grew up with families who have their own businesses that would help us observe how their own business finances are run. But we all come from family programming for money management, whether we are aware of it or not. We can be landing towards becoming more impulsive or being more risk adverse. And if you are able to identify that within yourself individually, you will be able to make sure that doesn't impact negatively the cooperative as well, and in your own lives too. Second, payments. We are the creators and decision makers of how much we make in the co-op. If we're not, specifically if we are a worker-owner co-op, if we're not very aware of what our financial needs are individually, then we might not be deciding on how much we're paying ourselves to make sure that we are being honorable with what we need to survive and sustain. And finally, cooperative wisdom. The knowledge we have as individuals can be shared with other co-op members. We can create similar workshops amongst us that can help us navigate the financial system, and even help us create groups and accountability buddies that can assist us in our goal settings and where we want to be financially. So today, we want to know a few things. The objectives of the workshops are that the importance of knowing your finances. It is really important to know where you're standing. Understand that they are personal, meaning that you owe no one zero explanation as to how you spend your money. If you want to spend $100 buying buttons, you can do that. Not recommended to if you're in a very tight budget, but nobody has to know what you do with your money, unless obviously they're part of your family and you make decision making with them. Understand that you have the ability to handle them, and doing so is easy to learn and easy to do, even though it might not feel that way. And specifically, I want you to know that I want you to take action today. So from today, one of the things that I really want everybody to finish and end from today is that we're doing this and we're making a budget and we're taking our financial knowledge to the next step. Hopefully you'll understand at the end how money works, what type of accounts you can organize your money into, what a budget is, and that is easy to follow, have strategies to manage stress and achieve your money goals, and have building blocks to manage debt, which will improve your credit and start investing in your financial future. All right, so this is a table of contents for today. We're going to be talking about money. We're going to talk about goals. We are going to dive a little bit into emotions and how they play a role in our personal finance. Then we're going to go into the specific budgets and a review of what we can do as what I call money dates. Okay, so money. Simply said, money is a tool of exchange. We use it to promote our well-being. Here in the US, there is a formula called the 50-30-20 that is used usually to determine a person's financial health. And I'm wondering if anybody here has heard about that 50-30-20 rule before. If you have, thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm very curious to see how many of you have heard or not heard. Not seeing much. I don't know, Maggie, if you're, because I can only see a very few amount of people.
I know we got a couple thumbs down.
Couple thumbs down? Cool. All right. So we're going to discuss a little bit about that and dive deeper in what it means. So I'm glad that is going to be useful for you all. All right. Money principles. Simply said, first of all, pay yourself first. This is something that I will be saying constantly and repeating constantly because we tend to be very responsible individuals and we want to make sure that we pay our rent and we want to make sure that we pay our car and all the bills. And usually the last person that we pay is ourselves. So I want to flip that and start us thinking differently and start making sure that the first money that you're going to be moving from one account to another is the money that goes to you. Second, create an emergency fund. And I'll explain what it is if folks haven't heard about an emergency fund. And also make sure that you are spending less than what you make. It is the basic of how money works and helps. Avoid high interest debt. Make sure that you not live above what you earn and do not rely on credit cards. If you do have debts, I am sharing a table that will help you create a plan to get out of the debt and into a more stable financial place. Okay, so pay yourself first. How many of you already do this? Yeah, okay, Charles, good. We got somebody that's doing this first. So the idea is for you to have these 3 little jars that we have here: savings, retirement, and emergency plan. These are the most important things that you want to make sure that you're filling up. You want to have that buffer of if things don't work out to avoid going towards debt to solve a problem that you might have. You want to make sure that when you get older and you don't want to work or you can't work anymore, you have enough money to be able to sustain yourself in the future, specifically if we see how maybe Social Security and all these other, even if they do exist, it's just not enough with how life is and how expensive it's gotten. And savings for yourself, savings for the things that you want to do in the future that are either travel or either fun stuff that you want to do for yourself. So in terms of this emergency fund, it's important to create one so that we're safe from unforeseen events, just as loss of employment, health situations, if something breaks in your house or your car. And it's said that if you have a regular job, with a constant entry of money. They say around 6 months to 12. If you are working for yourself, it should be a little bit more. And preferably, it's important to hold this money in a high yield savings account. Anybody, high yield savings account, have you heard about that? Yes, I got one yes. No, I got a few no's. Cool. Right. So a high yield savings account, all of the accounts that banks, credit unions offer, they give you a return, an interest on the money that you have saved. Usually in our regular banks, it's 0.00 Emerson, like very, very, very small amount of money that you can get back. And a high yield savings account, it can go up to, I think 4-5% is the ones I've seen lately. But it ranges mostly in between 3.5 and 4% return, which means that if you're going to hold money that it's a larger amount, but that you need access to it immediately, that you might not want to have in a certificate of deposit on CD, or have it on your investments, so money that you can quickly become liquid, this is where you would find it. And just if you are looking for places where you can open one, just look up high yield savings account in my area, and it will pop up all the different banks and all the different credit unions that offer it. And actually, there's 2 credit unions, not in the Northeast, unfortunately, that offer the highest return. But also you have to be a member specifically of that group, so not accessible to many people. All right. So how do we live within our means? First, we create a cash flow. Usually we hear about cash flows in a business setting. So in our co-ops, in our businesses, we hear the word cash flow. Are we familiar with what it means? Or idea? Okay. So it's basically the amount, that's coming in and coming out, that there's always money in the account. And this is what I want you to start changing. Most of us have done our personal finances by choosing, with this check, if we earn money a couple of times a week, we divide our payments along those weeks. So we say, with this check, I'm going to be paying the rent, and with this other check, I'm going to pay the car payment or the train. So we divide things like that. And I want us to start getting out of that mentality and into an idea where there's always money on the account. So whatever you're taking out, let's say in June, is what you're going to be spending in July. And towards the end of the month, you should be ending up with whatever you're going to be needing for the next month. If you can't have that because your earnings are too small at this point and you cannot create a cash flow immediately, at least try to build up to a minimum of $1,000. So to you, that $1,000 would be like zero. If you have 1,025, you actually have $25 in your head. And this will take us into that 50-30-20 rule, which we were talking about originally. What we do is that out of our take-home pay, not about how much we make, but the take-home pay, the net income that we get in our pockets or in our bank accounts, we divide it in 50% that goes towards the necessity, which is the needs, basic needs that we have, just housing, shopping, making sure that you have a roof over your head, like the basic things that you need to make sure that you continue to live and to survive. The 20% goes to what I call freedom, which is savings. But I like to see it as freedom because sometimes we don't want to put ourselves first, and it's hard for us to make that shift into thinking that to pay us first. But that's going to be allowing you to do more in the future. So think about your savings and your debt prepayment as part of that freedom. And then 30% of what you make can go to anything and everything that you want. This is the part that you have absolutely nothing to tell anybody about. Now, how do we start this? We started with thinking about our goals. Think today for tomorrow and what is it that you want to achieve. I am going to share here a quick plan. Let me see if I can quickly get it. All right. So if anybody can go in and open, I want to make sure that you all have access to the goal setting. You might have it as a viewing option only, and all you have to do is create a copy and send it to save it separately. Because goal settings are for everybody, and it doesn't matter where you are in your financial route. It's even more important if you're earning a very small amount of money. So I just want us to look at it. Let me know if you're able to open it. I want to see so I can continue. Did you get access?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All
right.
If we can double check that somebody else did, but I saw it as viewing access on my end.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Cool.
try to change it quickly to this. I'm hoping I'm picking the right. Okay, are you seeing the top 3 goals on the screen? Great. All right, so basically, I want us to see that whenever you're setting up goals, you need to have 3 things. It needs to be for something specific. It needs to have a specific amount and a date. If those 3 don't happen, then we're basically dreaming. And we want to make sure that we bring those dreams down and we make them into goals, because otherwise we're just living in La La Land, and we want to make sure that La La Land becomes true. So in this example, this person wants to buy a house and wants a down payment for a home, and their deadline is December next year, and they want $5,000. They have also debt repayment that they want to do for $2,000, and they have it for December 2025. And finally, they want to go to Niagara Falls, and it will be next year. So they think that it's going to take them $3,000 to complete that dream into a goal, and that is what they need. So I want us to take 2 minutes to fill out at least one of these. Think about one goal that you want to do. How much do you think is going to take you? And by when would you like to complete this goal? And when you're all ready, let me know. Because this is where we want to land. We want to make sure that you think and create a goal that you want to accomplish. Think about, let's say that you want to save $15,000 in 5 years. It might seem like a big goal and possibly unachievable. But if you think about it, 15K divided by 5 is $3,000. And $3,000 divided by 12 months is 250. And that divided by weekly could be like around $62. So it seems like if you put yourself into a plan and you save up those $62 a week, you would be able to achieve that plan. So the idea is for you to think about that goal, learn where you stand, which the budget that you are going to be working in, and create a plan to achieve it. And so once you have that process, just make sure that we automate it. And I'm going to show you what we can do with different accounts so that you can make that happen. And you check monthly on the money dates that we set to see if you are moving ahead, because things happen. Maybe that week you were not able to pay for your goal, and then the next week you might have to like do twice, or end up using the money from your birthday that somebody gave you to complete. But always have that goal set and create that plan so that we can continue informing it. Now, our emotions. How do our emotions play a role in personal finance? I'd like to share this study that was done by Wells Fargo in 2023, where you see basically how much people think about money. These numbers are not small. This is not So it's just to show us that we're not alone, that everybody possibly is in the same boat as we are, and that emotions are a huge component as to why we make the choices that we make. And in order for us to make sure that we don't land in these categories, or to at least we feel a little bit more in control of it, the best thing that we can do is to start understanding how emotions affect our finances. First, it makes us making decisions during emotional distress leads to bad decisions. Stress is nothing but fear if we're able to understand that. And fear can be bad for making decisions, and at the same time, very good for the companies to sell things to us. So, as much as we are able to define our fears and learn how to manage them, we're going to be better. And understand that fear is nothing, is not a bad thing, it's a defense mechanism, and that exists there to protect us. But making sure that we find techniques that can help us manage these fears and these stress triggers, we will be able to get ahead on our finances. I used to work with somebody, for example, who had a terrible fear of even looking at their bill, and whenever it would just pile up. And in order for us to work, and we were doing like one-on-ones, he would ask me to put one of those filters of like a fish, and because anytime that I would have any reaction, it would make him even more triggering for him. So whatever you need to figure out what works for you, I didn't care that if I had to look and be Nemo for them, it was fine, because it was helpful. And I'm glad that he was open enough to accept that he was having this issue and that he needed some help to go around this trigger that he was having as he continued to pay down his debt, because there was a lot of shame surrounding money, and we all have a lot of shame when it's when it comes to money. It is how we've been controlled. So I'm going to share this this other document. Let me quickly add it to the chat. I have 1,000 windows here open. And this is not only good, this is an emotional processing document. This is not only good for money management, but also even in your co-ops when you're having a little bit of conflict. And I wanted people to see if they are able to access it, because I want you to take it and look through it and use it. Specifically, start to develop the idea of what I call PR, which is pause, relax, ponder, respond, instead of just having a reaction to your emotions. And that document can help you start navigating through that. So just checking in with folks if you're able to see it. And access it. Yep. Okay. Awesome. Let me do this. Okay. So the first thing I want us to think right now is to think about that first experience that you have with money, and what is the narrative or the thing that you say, that you tell yourself that that experience made you think. For example, I used to think that money came from trees. When I was a child, I truly believed like, oh my God, anything and everything is possible. And I really, really believed that I could go and swim in a pool of coins. But just like it happened in this picture, I ended up with the moniker for my family that Carla had the dollar tattoo the dollar sign tattooed in her forehead, and that I was greedy and all I thought about was money. So I internalized that idea, and I don't want to be greedy, and I want to be a kind person, so money's bad. And sometimes we don't see how that messaging takes us and really affects us, because from coming from this point of abundance, possibility, thinking like, yes, anything and everything is possible, I go into, oh, I'm a bad person for thinking that. And on top of that, since I had to take care of my family's finances when I was very young, I learned that things were like really hard, and scarcity mindset came in. And that affected me because I denied academic opportunities because if I didn't have the money in the bank, like there was no way that I was going to do it. I earned an internship in France to work with the Department of State there, but because they didn't offer housing and I didn't have money for housing, I was like, well, I can't do it. And that would limit me in many, many ways. So I love this quote because it is so true. We do not live to the level of our capabilities, but to that of our beliefs. So it's important that we really take time to think about these emotions, these thoughts that we have surrounding money, and start digging a little deeper as to what they mean for us. And how do we motivate ourselves? I mean, if my head believes it, my heart feels it, then my hands are going to do it. In this idea of head, heart, hands, our subconscious works with what we don't have in our heads, but what we have in our emotions. I already shared with you the emotional processing. This other one that I'm going to share, it's called fears and resentment. There is this woman on YouTube called the Crappy Childhood Fairy. She specifically works with people who have CPTSD or ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, and has developed this technique that I found extremely helpful, where you sit down and you write all your fears and resentments in a piece of paper, and then you meditate for 20 minutes, because what happens is that it restructures your brain slowly, and there are neural pathways that you need to fix, get in the right direction. Sometimes we are not aware that we are acting on our mental thoughts and not actual things that could be happening. So I just also quickly checking if people got access to the document. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So, oh, sorry, I need to get back to the tab. There we go. Okay. So now that we know where we want to go and what gets in the way, we have to create a map that will help us get to where we want to go. And that map is a budget. Simply said, a budget is how much money comes in versus how much money goes out. It's important to know where you're headed, which is why I wanted to start with the goal. I want us to think. I want us to feel like we can't do anything and everything, that money does grow on trees. And it kind of does because it's paper, so why not? And it's good also to have it because it keeps you in line when you're going through hard times. Stress levels go down because you already have a plan. So whenever things kind of like out of nowhere, during a few years after COVID, I lost my job and ended up a little stressed, to say the least. But knowing that I had that plan, I was able to see, okay, if I can remove everything, do I make at least 50% of my necessities? And I did. And so I made sure that I found 2 part-time jobs that could make me keep afloat as I continue going. Had I not known what those were, then I would possibly have been ending up in a much higher and stressful situation that I needed to be. We're going to see 2 budgets today. This is a simple budget, which is the one that we shared on our Co-op monthly newsletter. It's very simple. It basically is just showcasing your budget, how much you're thinking that you're going to be spending, how much you actually spend, and that difference. And this other one, which is honestly my favorite, it's a deeper dive down into your finances. I like this one because it's true. I like thinking in bigger numbers, because when you see bigger numbers, you make bigger changes. It is not the same to say, oh, I spend $6 in coffee, than to look at your budget at the end of the year and understand that you just spent $1,600 in coffee. So, which is what happened to me a few years back. And understanding this can help you see the idea is not for you to become, restricting towards yourself and thinking, oh no, I can't spend money, but just it helps you make sure that you are spending money where you truly want to spend money, not necessarily where you don't want to spend money. I'm going to share with you a quick thing that I learned recently about if you are an impulsive buyer or you tend to buy emotionally impulsively, the 72-hour rule, it is that whenever you see something and you want, write it down, write it where you found it, how much is it, and the date, and wait 3 days, 72 hours. Most likely, at the end of those 3 days, you're not going to want the thing that you wanted. So kind of like the same thing with when you have a craving for something and you wait 15 minutes to see if the craving's still there or not. Similar, but with spending, and it's 3 days instead of 15 minutes. So we're also going to work through this one a little bit. But before we do, I also wanted to show a little bit of a regular pay per week budget that is used. I don't, like I mentioned, I don't like having weekly budgets. I think that it doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room when things don't work out. But some people still like to use them. Things to think about is that you do not need to have a computer or access or understanding of how Google works or anything like that. You can be done by hand. The more detailed, the better, specifically at the beginning or when there's times of change. I suggest, and this is what I would like everybody to do after today, to take 3 months of expenses of all bank accounts. That includes credit cards, banks, if you have like cash, anything that you take and you study. And I put the word study because it's not just read. It's like sit down and write exactly where your money is going. Have you heard of zero waste testing or exercises? Like you look that if you want to lower the amount of waste that you create, you kind of look at your trash bag and then you see exactly where things are going. This is similar, but with your money. Okay, so let's go quickly back into the 50-30 rule, because the first thing that we want to identify is our money going? Where is our money going specifically? 50% necessities, 30% what I want, and 20% savings and freedom. Okay, if you can quickly do a table that has 5 columns and a couple of rows, and in each one of them, we're going to be writing down whether if it's fixed or a fluctuating expense, the amount, when is it that you have to pay it, is it recurrent or fixed, and is it a need, a want, or a freedom? Basically, is it a necessity? 50%, is it a want? 30%, or is it freedom or savings, which is 20%? And I'm going to give 5 minutes for this one, just so that we can start getting that idea of how it works. Doesn't have to be the whole thing, but I wanted you to start practicing so that when we're done, we can take this and we can use it as homework and use it for when we truly look deep within those 3 months of expenses. Okay, we're gonna have one more minute and then we're gonna continue. Okay. So towards the end, you should have something that looks like this table right here. You have your groceries, your home, that be it mortgage or your rent, your transportation, health insurance, gym. In this was a very invented up example. As you can see, somebody's paying, spending 1,300 on travel. That's that's a great life. But basically, I wanted to show that maybe this person could change a bit of how they do their finances, because when we go into the 50, 30, 20, I want us to start adding how much of the 50% is going, how much is the total of that 50%? If you were to count, how much is 30 and how much is 20? So I'm going to give another few minutes so that you can do a little bit of math up until now, because we want to see where you land on each one of them. Okay, so once you have that number, I want you to think about the income that you get. So that we're doing this monthly for now, the income that you get, and think about everything that you get. It includes child support if you get child support or alimony, pay stubs, tips, more or less, because when you work on commission and when you work on tips, it could be fluctuating, but let's just do the most recent one that you have. And what we're going to do is that we're going to divide that amount that comes from each category divided by your total income. And it's going to give you a percentage. It's going to give you, in this case, this person's basic needs is 2,616 divided by $4,000 that they make, and it's 0.65. So it's 64% they're in their needs, 40% in their wants, and 5% basically more or less on their freedom, which means that they're really off in their money. Now, an important point that I like to think about, oh, so sorry, it closed on something up in here. Yeah. When you look at this, specifically given our current financial reality and how things are, a lot of us might see that in the 50% necessities and needs and stability, it might be higher, just like this person, because things are extremely more expensive. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, but it definitely puts in perspective how our voting and democratic choices impact us, because this is where we are economically as a country, where even if you have a regular job, you might not be able to have this 50-30-20 rule imbalance, have your financial life imbalance. The good thing is that we are also cooperators. And when we work on co-ops, it means that we can get together and think about creative solutions to help folks that have these higher needs to pay these expenses. For example, if we're in a co-op that has a high surplus, some might be able to buy a housing co-op and offer that as a solution for people to get affordable housing. If you have a little less, maybe you can buy a van and offer transportation for people to come in, where that way they can save money and time if they live too far away from where your business is at. And if you have even smaller amount, you could do catering, cater lunch, healthy lunch into, honestly, personally, that would be like my favorite, because I am not a very good self-care person when it comes to cooking for myself. But it definitely will help people not have to take time to think about cooking or spend money outside eating, because they would have food in at work. And even if there's leftovers, they can take it home for dinner. So as a cooperator, we have more options when we are working with our co-ops to see how we can be a change and help to folks that might have these issues. All right, so we're gonna go next to organizing banks accounts, but I wanna make sure that if we have any questions, this is like the moment to ask them. Any comments? You can write them down in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves. Maybe my chat box kind of disappear, just in case somebody writes something. Let me know.
Okay.
Give it one more minute. If not, we continue. Okay, so we continue to how can we organize this to make our lives simpler? So first, let's remember that we're trying to achieve a cash flow. From today, I want to promise that you solemnly swear that you will not continue to pay with one check, one things, and then with the other check, other things. We will create a cash flow, and we're going to think about a month ahead, which means that we're going to be taking in June, where we're going to be using in July. So I really want us to, at least the minimum that we achieve today is that we achieve that mentality change and shift, where we really want to make sure that we always end up at the end of the month with the amount that we're going to be using the following month. Okay. And then we can automatically pay our debts. And this is going to help us possibly not have that much stress, make sure that we never go in overdraft, make sure that we never forget that credit card payment. And then on top of that, we have to pay that extra fee because we were late if we automate everything. And I will be sharing different types of accounts that you can have to organize this to make it a little bit simpler. And also, if you use cash only, or if you have a very tight budget, cash might be the best way for you to handle where you are. So, detailed bank accounts. It would be great to have 5 accounts, one where the money is deposited, a savings account, which will be your high yield savings account for your emergency fund and your retirement, which you will then move to your IRAs or your investments accounts. And for taxes too, if you are somebody who has to pay taxes for either quarterly or yearly, this is a great place to put your money, because the money that you have to pay for your taxes is making you money as you wait for the time that you have to pay. And then having 2 accounts, one for basic needs and one for the expense accounts. Now, The basic needs are your recurring payments. Remember when we were dividing that category? It would be things just like your house, the rent, the car insurance, childcare, water, utilities, something that can get deducted from your account. And then the other one is your expense account, which some people divide into two cards. One, it is for groceries and gas. Things are still a necessity, but that it's not something that you can necessarily have an automatic payment. And then an extra amount, an extra card for your takeouts, your outings, extra expenses that you want to do. And finally, this is something that I used to do a lot when I had my dad's finances, is that I had a specific account, and I know many people do, like holiday accounts or birthday accounts, where you just move money into those. I suggest that also having it in a high yield savings account, because you're making money on top of the money that you have there. So anything that's free money, go out and take it and make use of it. And some folks might find that this is too many bank accounts. So at least we can just have three, where one is where you deposit your savings account, and it could be a high yield savings account. I prefer separating it so that you have it in two different places and you're not using from your funding. But since this is not where you're going to be playing around, like this is just money that's coming in, and you're literally at the end of the month checking to take out and putting in your basic needs and your fluctuating or recurring expense accounts, then it could be fine. And then having those two extra accounts where you have those fixed payments, your house, car insurance, etc., and then the things that you have to actually have a credit card to go out. I mentioned that you also can do envelopes or cash. So I did not mention this at one point, but when I think I mentioned it, I had to take my family's finances when I was between 9 and 11 years old. And my dad was someone that never made more than $30,000. And we were a family of 5. So money was extremely tight. And this is the way that I got my family out of debt. You receive everything that you take, same idea. What you take out in June, you use in July. But the difference is that you take it to the bank and you divide everything by each bill that exists: 100, 50, 20, 10, 5, 1. You write in each envelope what the amount that you need and for what. If it's for your car, for the rent, and you're going to be putting that exact amount in the envelope. If you do not have the change, let's say that your electricity bill is $39. I don't know where, but $39, and you have 40, put 40, because that extra dollar that you're going to be, when you pay, you're going to be putting at the end, at the back of, you're going to have one envelope, extra envelope, where you're going to be putting everything extra. And that could become either first your cash flow, and then your emergency fund, and then possibly your savings. I also recommend to do this when there's a big change in your life. Like I went back to it when I lost that job. When I told you that I lost that job, I went back into envelopes. And because nowadays we're paying everything with cards and everything is automated, what I would do is that if I have to pay something that was online, because, not like back in the day that you have to actually physically go and pay it, I would pay myself. So I would still take it, pay it online, but then pay it cash-wise, so that I would still physically see that the money's gone if I can. So I wouldn't spend more than I needed to spend. So let's review. And this is where we would have our money dates. And this is where I want you to pick. Tell me, everybody, pick a favorite day of the week, a favorite time. It could be Friday, it could be the 6th, it could be the end of the month. But I want you to make sure that you create a money date where you are setting up your plan. What's your goal? We're going to be writing this budget, and we're going to make sure that we are organizing these accounts. So the first of the month, you write down how much you're going to start with at the beginning of that month. That's the first thing. And that budget that you're going to need. You're going to move the money to your different accounts, depending on which option you picked. And then you're going to leave your card that is for the savings and for the fixed home account, you're going to leave it at home and you're going to only take with you whatever card it is for your recurrent fluctuating expenses. And at the same time, whatever money you had in that account, you're going to move it into your emergency fund, into your high yield savings account. And if you have money there that needs to go into investment, you're going to move it and you are going to invest. Make sure that you purchase your investments. Usually, I also have taught information about investments and for retirement. Fortunately, we don't have time for that. But look up your Roth IRAs, look up any account that can be helpful for you to think about in the future. And then at the end of the month, you were going to see if there was money left over. If there was money left over, we're going to put it back into the high yield savings account. So last thing I'm going to mention before we go into the practice using the 2 tools that we shared, it is how to manage your debt. I will be also sharing with you all a table. Let's see where it is. Okay. So please let me know if you can see this one, because this is important if anybody is having some needs to organize their debt. Is everybody able to open it? Let me try to share the screen here as well. Okay. Are you able to see it now? Cool. So basically what you want to do is you want to have the debt name on the first column. You want to have the total amount. You want to have the minimum here of how much you're going to be paying monthly. Your payment due date is important. But once you create your cash flow, doesn't matter because you're always going to have money to pay your minimums. And you want to have how much you're paying for your interest. All of this information is in your statement balance. And the limit, the maximum limit that you have for each credit card is also available in your statement balance. Why is this important? I would love to have time to discuss credit. And credit is unfortunately king in the US. You can't do anything without it. And this is one of the ways that that is decided on. 35% of your credit comes from making sure that you make that minimum payment every month. That's a big chunk of the percentage. So at least the very bare minimum, you want to make sure that you're making those payments, right? Then the next part is basically the debt to income ratio. What I mean is like the balance and the limit. So in this case, you have a limit of 6,500 and this person is spending around 16. You want to make sure that each month you're using less than 20% of that limit. It goes by the total of the limit that you have. So this person might have a limit of $23,000, but their debt is $21,000. So they're really high in their debt. And even though some of them, if you can see here, there's empty spaces because they're personal loans, so there's not a limit. But this is going against them when it comes to that. Now, why do I organize this way? Most people just start paying a little extra to each monthly minimum without having a plan. And I want you to start making sure that you pick one of these 2 options. They're called avalanche and snowball. Basically, the difference is, are you going to attack the debt with the highest interest, which mathematically speaking makes the most sense because that way that you will end up paying the least amount of money to it, or you're going to go to the account that has the smallest balance. Now, if you are an individual that makes enough money to be able to pay out this debt, it's more of an organization problem than necessarily that you're not making enough. Yes, 100% go towards paying the high interest first. Now, if you're a person that it's making like it's in a tight budget, not only because it's psychologically helpful to see you paying things off, but also because you eliminate that monthly minimum. So in this case, this person has $500 here. If they concentrate on getting rid of that debt, so whatever extra money they have, they put it up in here, they'll get rid of that $35 that could potentially then be used for the next card. So make the payments and then choose your plan. This is going to help you manage that. And also, once you have them done, let's suppose that this person is able to pay at least half of that, they might be able to open a new credit card with 0% transfer balance interest and move their debt into it, which then will eliminate it growing and compounding. So let me go back to sharing the other so we can get into the fun stuff. At least fun. I love doing this, so it's a lot of fun for me to organize that. But before we do, again, questions, doubts, thoughts. We have like 20 minutes left to work with the budget itself. Nope. Okay. Oh yeah. So let's go into the simple budget. So you all have access to the simple budget, right?
Can you resend it? Because I think it was shared in Co-op Monthly, and I don't know that you.
Oh, I didn't write it. Okay, let me resend it. Right.
Just to make sure it's the same one. I was going to drop one, but
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this is a simple. I'm going to share both. I'm going to share the complete and the simple. Did it go? I give you have both.
I can share a version of the simple that has empty ones also. Would that be good?
Check, because I thought that the second. Oh yeah, do
Okay.
that.
Yeah. I'll
Perfect.
do that
But
next.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so in the simple one, we see that it has only like 3 things that you have to think about. The idea of this is to have you become a little bit more aware of how much do we think we spend versus how much we actually spend, or how much do we think we make versus how much we actually make. We can make a budget 1,000 times and we have written it down, and possibly you're in the space where you're like, oh wait, but I make $3,000 a month, but in reality you didn't count that day you ran out of hours and they had to deduct money from it, or you're working hourly and you don't have enough sick days to complete. So it is important that you start writing what you think you're going to be making versus, and then at the end start writing how much you actually are making. And that includes on everything. If you have SNAP, if you have any assistance from the government, everything that any money that comes in, you write it down in here. And then you have your fixed expenses, which is the one we discussed in the beginning, which are things that you always have to pay. They're always there. They will be deducted most likely from your account. Then you have your daily expenses or your recurring fluctuating expenses, which is your groceries, your takeout, personal care, and things that you might have a bit of more control of. If for any reason you're not making enough for a month, maybe these areas is where you can, fix yourself and change things around. And transportation, savings, and your obligations, which is your debt over here at the bottom, and investment in yourself for the future. You have kids and pets, it's also in the bottom, and vacations for the total. Now, once you complete these, what I want you to start seeing is in the summary, and start evaluating that summary and seeing where things actually are, how they're looking like. because that is what you're going to be taking for your next month. That is what you're then, when you go to February, you will be making the changes in your budget to make sure that you are, if you ended up in red numbers over here, you want to make sure that then next month that you are taking away from that, because you do not, you're basically lending money for yourself and you're not repaying yourself to catch up. Is anyone having issues with it, or that you're able to fill it out?
And that would be the link that I just shared would be the one that's fillable.
Yeah. Do I have an empty one for the complete?
Carla, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that people will look back at these links and recording later, also just wondering if this or the large one, if either are feeling overwhelming, if you have a suggestion of where to start. So even with the simple one, like, is there a section that you would suggest starting with first? And do you
Yeah,
think it would be best to fill out the simple one before looking at the yearly or that type of
yeah,
thing?
definitely. If it's too much, start up with this one, because it would at least help you organize things in the first place. And then you can go into the other one, because the other one, as you're gonna see, is a dive into where things are. But if it feels too overwhelming, this one. And again, it doesn't even have to be on the computer. You can literally write down on a piece of paper all of this information, how much you're making. The one thing that I want you to really, really do, it doesn't matter how your budget looks like, is that you look at those statements, that you sit down and you print out all of those 3 month statements and you start seeing how much money and adding it up. Because we really think that we make more than what we actually make, and we really think that we spend less than what we actually spend. So out of anything that I've said, the two things that I want you to take out is, one, let's forget about, with this check I pay this, with this other check I pay that, and we're gonna go into a cash flow mentality. And two, look into those statements and truly see where we are. How it looks after that, how you organize it, it doesn't matter. The first step is to see where you're standing. Now, I know that you're all like filling out this one, and I am sorry that we started a little later, that I might be, it might have eaten up from our time, but I really also want to show you the more complete budget. So let me see if I can change it over here. Just so if you are a little bit more of a type A and like to know specific to the T and where you can write it down, it will be looking a little bit like this. And this example, this person works at a gym and they make commission and they also do Uber. I like to think about numbers big. It is not the same to say I make $18 an hour than it is to say I make $25,000 a year. Just like it's not the same when I was giving you the example that I thought that I spend $6 on coffee when I really was spending 1,600 a year. When you see numbers big, you get a little scared because you're like, oh, shoot, I am really spending that much money on coffee. And at the same time, you feel a little better because it's not the same when you feel like you make 18 an hour, but in reality, you're making much more. Of course, that at the end, you're thinking, where did that money go? But if once you have knowledge, it gives you power, and it's you are able to make changes when you know where you're standing versus when you don't. So the way that I do here, the first thing that I put is you pay yourself first. You make sure that you create a desired goal. Let's say that your emergency fund, you want to have $15,000. And it's going to take you time. It's not going to be for tomorrow if you're not making a large amount of money, but make a yearly budget of how much that would look like, how much is it possible for you to do, and write it down in your budget. So here I have both the income that you make minus taxes and whatever they take out of us. The math is here, and if you are able to, I'm gonna try to like put colors before I share the empty one for that, so that you know where to put your actual money and it doesn't mess up the math. But it's good to see how much you make and how much is actually coming into your pocket. So in this case, this person makes $3,700 before taxes and everything, and then after everything, $3,000. So you have to make your budget based on this number, not on the number that you make. And then once you have your idea, your ideal, and what you could do small, little by little to get to your ideal, you'll have your savings total. And it should be 20% of how much you make. If it's more, better. At least 20% of how much you make. Then you start thinking about the rest of the things. This person, the personal development, is invest in yourself, gym, some classes. Then they have their debt. Oh, sorry, that was expand. They have their debt over there. And they have how much they're paying here. They have the limit, how much they owe, that interest over here, and their plan of how much their minimum payments over here and how much they're actually paying each time to lower it. And finally, how much they spend a year in their rent. It's $800 rent. They spend in groceries $200. They spend transportation $130, utilities, eating out. The Visa card is basically with like regular expenses, anything that is expense. And then their cell phone, internet, and finally, this is the just putting it at all together. And then at the end here, this is what I love, is that you have your income of how much you made that month, and then how much was your expenses, and if you went into a positive or a negative. You also will have a bank information so that you can have that cash flow. At the beginning of the month, this person started with $5,300. After expenses and income, they ended up actually in a positive. And this is where you would make your changes. Because if you went negative here, you're going to make sure then the next month, you know that you cannot eat outside. You know that you're not able to, I don't know, I have to do massages every so often for my body. And I can maybe, instead of every week, I can do every 2 weeks. So make those changes there. Now, if you want to go even deeper and understand absolutely everything, let me share this other one. Are you able to see this one that says 2024 budget?
Yes.
Okay. This is another person that makes much more money. They work at a bank and they're a coach, and they have rental properties, so they're able to play with their money a little bit better. Now, one of the things that this person was doing is that they really wanted to write down, this is what I want you to see when we were working with them. They write down absolutely every single expense that they have. So in their real estate house, they will show how much they're spending on, they had an Airbnb, TP or TP, how do you call it? Like those little, forget the name of the little
Tiny house
TP?
or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. I said tiny house or something.
It's not a tiny house, it's just TP type. It's this like it's made of fabric, and I forget the name of it. But anyway.
You're
Kind of like, yeah, like a yurt, yes. So they had that, and they put it on Airbnb, and so these were their expenses. They had to buy toilet paper, they had to buy things, and so they wanted to make sure that they knew exactly out of everything that was coming out. In their expenses over here, this is where the money was, where they were paying their money for their American Express card. That's $700. $200 came from their TD Bank account and another bank that they had. And over here, they went into, let me see. Are you able to see the comments if I share them? I'm
Yeah,
not sure. Yeah. Okay.
you're pulling up, yes.
Okay, perfect. So basically, like I want to see that. All of those. So they're Colombian, so they went back home and they had a flight to go to Colombia. They were taking classes. It's in Spanish because they're Spanish speaker. But basically, they are writing down absolutely every single thing that these $286 come up. Why do they want to do that? Because every month they want to make sure that they are spending their money where they want it. So this is like a deeper dive into your money. And I do recommend doing this for at least 3 months, because that way you see exactly where your money is going and you make adjustments to understand where it is like that goal, those goals that I had at the beginning, are my expenses, are my choices taking me towards those goals? So I also wanted to share that. Do you have any questions on that? Do you want me to go back into the simple one so we can work on that one better? But I just wanted to show you both.
And I'll be sharing all of the links again in an email with y'all after. And you're welcome to share any questions there as well.
Yep. Okay. So I think if you don't have any more questions, thank you for spending time with us here and taking the time to look into your personal finances.